The question of how to define peace was a really interesting question when we first started out on this work, and we decided that we didn't want to just take our own view on that. So what we did was bring together an advisory group made up of a range of individuals who have been working on the issues of peace and the various different characteristics that it has. We came up with 4 areas of interest. One of them was equality. One of them was safety and security. One of them related to social cohesion, and the last one related to the development of our civil society, our civic society, our political engagement, our democratic processes. It has proved to be a very resilient model.
Security, it's sometimes referred to as negative peace, i.e. the absence of violence, but it is a very basic thing. A peaceful society is one where the citizen feels safe in their bed at night, feels safe in their own neighbourhood, feels safe in the workplace. And so we measure the degree of threat there is by looking at levels of violence. We need to look at equality, first of all, in the labour market. How do the different communities fare? And then we look at housing. Again, is there equality in housing? Is there equality in our schools? Is there equality in healthcare? We look at equality through all of those different indicators. Cohesion and sharing. And that's looking at whether or not we're building one single cohesive society. We try to see how much sharing is there, and we look at sharing in housing and again in education, how much of schooling is shared, either through integrated schools or through sharing of school campuses. And we look at it in terms of mix in residential spaces. Have we got increased sharing in residential areas? But we look at it also in terms of the public spaces, you know, the new kind of cappuccino culture, if you want to call it that, in our towns and our cities, the mixed recreational spaces, the mixed retail spaces. And we try to see, well, what's the effect of that? We try to look at political progress in the sense of the ability to resolve our difficulties through dialogue and through a parliamentary forum. How well is that progressing? But what we try to do is take all of these together and to look at it in the round and to say, well, okay, taking all of these things together, this year compared with last year, compared with the year before, are we moving forwards or are we moving backwards? And that's really what the Peace Monitoring Report is all about. We try to do a kind of X-ray of the society to see, well, where might there be some problems here, which haven't yet manifested themselves, but which might well manifest themselves in the future, because we know this from our past. If we know anything from our past, it is that if you build a society that has inequality at its heart, that will erupt at some point. And that's what went wrong in Northern Ireland before. We have to be very careful that we don't repeat those mistakes. When we produce this Peace Monitoring Report, what the Community Relations Council would like to see is our politicians and our policy makers using the evidence that we produce in order to create the policies for the future, you know, taking account of what we're showing here. Well, the Community Relations Council, as the title suggests, has got a concern with relations between the two communities. And that means looking at what happens between the two main communities and also what is happening with the new communities that have arrived in Northern Ireland to see, are we creating a fair society? Are we creating an equal society? Are we creating a society that is cohesive? That is the job of the Community Relations Council. And what we're doing through this report is trying to provide a dispassionate analysis of where the problems are, and also not just the problems, but where are we getting it right? And we are getting it right in some places, wrong in the others. And our job is to try to scope that so that year on year we have a kind of health check on how we're doing.
And what we've discovered, interestingly enough, in carrying out that exercise is that we're one of a very small number of organisations globally that have been able to do any of this work. And we weren't quite expecting that when we started out on this road, but we now have an engagement with a series of other organisations in areas that are coming out of conflict or hoping to come out of conflict, and sharing ideas about what is the best way to monitor peace.